financial analyst Jim Rickards speaks on the prophecies of the book of Revelation. Giving all praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua B'Shem Rakar Kodash. And if you don't know about Jim Rickards, he's one of the individuals that I watch on YouTube. He's a financial analyst in the YouTube world, I guess the Facebook world or whatever. And anytime he goes on any other show dealing with the economy, dealing with the reset or the global reset or the economic reset, however you want to call it, that's been talked about going back before 2001. Really, it's been talked about along with the current thing that we're suffering, so to speak. Anyway, the title says it all. I'm listening to one of his videos. I don't just listen to him. I listen to Ray Dalio. I listen to what's this other guy? He's a financial analyst. He has a southern accent and he lives in I believe Taiwan. Somebody can help me. Jim Rogers, if I'm not mistaken. Also, this guy, the rich dad, poor dad. I listen to him. I watch his videos. Max Kaiser of the Kaiser Report, Gerald Celente, and many others. What's this guy? He's the president of CEO of Euro Pacific. I can't think of his name. It'll come back to me. But he's also another financial expert. You also have Mike Maloney, if I'm not mistaken, and he deals heavily with gold and silver. He goes into the history of the Roman Empire and how the Roman Empire fell. And the Roman Empire fell economically. The soldiers, the centurions and so forth, they went against the Roman Empire because they wasn't paying them. They were devaluing the denarius, or the denarii, whether you say it as far as plural or singular. What they were doing was they were basically destroying the money by adding inferior metals to the denarius, demonetizing. And that's what's happening right now. All this stuff going on with the Capitol in DC being raided, and all the things that are going on with the so-called so it fucking happens with all this stuff going on. Bear with me for a minute. Bear with me for 1 minute. With all this stuff going on, I just got interrupted. Anyway, this guy Jim Rickards, I'm watching one of his videos, and he's a guest on somebody else's show, as you can see on the screen there. And the guest mentions certain books that he wrote, And he had mentioned that in one of his books he quoted from the book of Revelation. So they spoke about the book of Revelation for a couple of minutes, maybe 30 seconds to a minute. But anyway, it caught my attention, because you have to take into and consider the Bible and whether the Bible is true or not. You know, whether the Bible is correct, and whether it's accurate, and whether it's truly a prophetic book. And we know that the scriptures, you know, in particular the book of Revelation, is definitely a prophetic book that's coming to pass right before our eyes. And, you know, when you check out these different financial experts, they watch our videos and other videos, and they go into the scriptures. They consider that the scriptures, especially the mark of the beast, they're kind of putting two pieces of the puzzle together, and they're considering the coming mark of the beast system, this thing that we're dealing with. They're coming to the realization, especially these financial experts, that the scriptures, you would have to consider the scriptures as being a book of prophecy. And really the only book on the planet that deals with the current, what's around the corner or right at the door, is the mark of the beast. Now, I don't have to go into the scriptures on the mark of the beast. We all already know these scriptures by heart. But if anybody else has questions, they can ask, and I'll give you I'll send you to the right videos so you can understand this. Because for this individual, Jim Rickards, which he appears to be an Edomite, but he could be a Jake, he's connected to the scriptures. He's connected to the book of Revelation. And the book of Revelation is speaking loudly. And that's why this man had mentioned it in his book. Anyway, it says here, Jim Rickards, I went to his profile, it said Jim G. Rickards is an American lawyer, economist, investment banker, speaker, media commentator, and author on matters of finance and precious metals. He deals with the silver and the gold. He is the author of Currency Wars, the Making of the Next Global Crisis, which we're in right now. We are experiencing a global crisis. And 6 other books. He lives in New Hampshire, USA. So what I'm going to do is, I'm just going to let you listen to a little bit of this. This is, if I remember, I'll leave the link in the description box. He's a guest on Mike McCullough, if I'm saying it right. And he's interviewing Jim Rickards, which he's the author of his current book, The New Great Depression, because we're in the new Great Depression. And this was put up January 15, 2021, year of hastening of the coming of Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shai. So let me let you listen to a little bit of it, and I'll cut it short. I may hit you with a precept or two. But like I said, when it comes to the these prophecies coming to pass, we already know these prophecies. So let's see what happens. So listen up.
About this, incidentally, this guy that sent me the other 2 books is retired from Wall Street. He's also a rabbi. But you started your book, as you often do, and I'm a, please don't cancel, I'm an Irish Catholic, but you started with a quote from the Revelations, and that's what, guys, if you can pop that up, that's what I wanted to start with, Jim. Like you obviously have written a bunch of books now, you have the compilation of books, but this quote in particular, if we can't pop it up there, I'll just read it myself. I've read it multiple times, but this is Revelations 15:1. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up with the wrath of God. Now, why did you start with that?
Well, first of all, Revelations is obviously, it's actually a particular genre of literature called apocalyptic literature, but apocalypse doesn't mean like everything, death and destruction. It actually is a kind of prophecy, and the book of Daniel is, the Old Testament is considered apocalyptic, as is the book of Revelation. So since my books are always forward-leaning, and just to, I get into plugging books, but I had a book in 2019 called Aftermath.
Right.
And if you turn to page 290, you just read a couple pages, it talks about pandemic and says there's a 100% chance it will happen in the next 3 years. And then a few paragraphs later, it says there'll be armed gangs and armed militias in the streets. So kind of nothing happened in 2020 that we didn't tell you about in 2019. Same thing with this book. It takes you, it covers the landscape today, of course, but takes you into the rest of 2021, 2022. So I was looking at the book of Revelation because of that prophetic apocalyptic mode. But of course, there's a particular passage that mentions plague. Also makes the point that there's nothing new about plagues and pandemics. The Peloponnesian War, the outcome of the Peloponnesian War pivoted on pandemic in Athens. There was more to it than that, but that was a big feature. So hopefully we were kind of connecting the dots there.
Yeah, and you weren't, I mean, like as most people, you get labeled, I get labeled, we all get labeled. We're all, if you're triggering somebody, we're going to be labeled. But
Right.
the book, like, even if someone wasn't, not as many people read in this day and age, a lot of our subscribers do, but even if you weren't to actually read the book and you were to say, wow, look at the cover, this is really scary, right in the introduction for people that haven't even read the first page, like a virus can cause disease and pandemic, yet it cannot directly cause an economic collapse. That's up to us. That's up to us part is where I wanted to start, which is where you started the book, so go for it.
Right. So obviously we have a pandemic, and it's a bad one. By the way, there's a study from the it's an economic paper, but the lead author was with the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, but a couple of academic colleagues, collaborators, and I think they were from University of California. But they did a time series, a 650-year time series. That's my kind of time series. I always criticize people saying, here's my time series. Yeah, it's 6 months or 1 year, and that's garbage. They go back 650 years to the Black Death, and they looked at every pandemic since 1350 in which 100,000 or more people died, and they found 15 of them. By the way, this COVID pandemic is going to end up number 3 on the list. Not quite there yet, but the number 3 on the list right now is 2 million fatalities. COVID's 1.9 million, rising fast. So COVID's going to be number 3 after the Black Death and the Spanish flu, which were much greater. But that kind of puts it in perspective. But they were economists, not virologists or epidemiologists. But that was their time series in their database. What they discovered is that back to normal. We'll never get back to normal. There's no more normal. We will survive. We'll get through it, but things will be different going forward. But forget any kind of normal. But what they discovered is that in terms of interest rates and growth and capacity and other factors, it takes 30 to 40 years to get back to some kind of normal. So when Jay Powell says, well, interest rates are not going up until 2023, I was like, well, thank you, Jay. Why don't you try 2043? Because that's really a much more that's the right way.
Well, anyway, you can listen. What I'll do is I'll leave the link in the description box. You can listen to the rest of the video entitled "Real Conversations: The New Great Depression" with Jim Rickards. And this is on the page Hedge Eye. So you have these, you have people that look at us like we're fools. You're going into the Bible. The Bible's an old book. The Bible's a book of fairy tale. But you have one at least one of these top economists actually, dedicating the book of Revelation, in particular, Revelation chapter 15, verse 1 and 2, in his book. And the scriptures speak about plagues. And he mentioned the Black Death, which is the bubonic and the pneumonic plague, which destroyed 2/3 of Israel during the time period of the so-called Byzantine Empire. So here you have it. For those of you that think that this book is a book of fairy tales, the Bible is a book of fairy tales. Here you have a top financial expert, mentioning the book of Revelation, or a chapter in the book of Revelation. Anyway, with that, I'm going to say shalom.